Wolves are still managed by the state in Idaho, despite a favorable legal decision for conservation advocates this week aimed at enhancing protections for these vital creatures in the West. Although the status of wolves remains unchanged under state jurisdiction in Idaho, where hunting and trapping activities continue to be permitted, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game confirmed this on Thursday. The current situation arises from a recent judgment in a lawsuit filed earlier this year in the U.S. District Court for the District of Montana. According to discussions with conservationists reported by the Idaho Capital Sun, this legal action was initiated primarily to secure more robust protections for wolves, prompted by the unchecked growth of hunting and trapping activities in states like Idaho. In 2021, the Idaho legislature passed Senate Bill 1211, signed by Governor Brad Little, which removed limits on the annual purchase of wolf hunting tags. This law not only authorized state contracts with governmental bodies and third-party organizations to cull wolves, but also legalized year-round wolf trapping on private land. Once nearly eradicated in the Western U.S. by the 1930s due to government incentivization and widespread poisoning campaigns, wolves are a native species that have had a long and difficult recovery journey. They were among the first species to be added to the endangered species list in 1974, and significant efforts were made to reintroduce them into Idaho and Yellowstone National Park using wolves captured from Canada in the mid-1990s. However, the landscape changed dramatically in 2011 when the U.S. Congress stripped wolves in Idaho, Montana, and surrounding areas of their protections under the Endangered Species Act, paving the way for state-managed hunting and trapping. Conservationists expressed their concern that wolves could once again face a precarious decline, with fears of dwindling populations reigniting their previous struggles. Greg Ladon, the Idaho director of the Western Watersheds Project, articulated a vital concern during a phone interview, stating, "The states express a preference for maintaining fewer wolves. The danger in low populations is that these wolves could once again be pushed towards extinction in the West, reversing decades of conservation efforts." A significant turn of events occurred on Tuesday when Judge Donald Malloy from Montana's 4th District ruled in favor of the conservationists, rejecting findings from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that claimed wolves in the Western U.S. did not merit protections under the Endangered Species Act. Patrick Kelly, the Montana and Washington director for the Western Watersheds Project, hailed the ruling as a significant triumph for wolves, science, and conservation initiatives cultivated over decades. Despite the ruling not altering the current status of wolves in Idaho, one of the chief attorneys involved in the case, Kate Schultz of the Center for a Humane Economy, described the decision as a resounding victory for those advocating for wolves. She noted that Judge Malloy dismissed nearly all arguments presented by the Fish and Wildlife Service, indicating a long-standing pattern of federal mismanagement regarding wolf conservation in the U.S. Going forward, plaintiffs are hopeful that this ruling could pave the way for additional legal protections for wolves, facilitating their recovery so they can fulfill their essential ecological roles. The Idaho Department of Fish and Game, along with Governor Little's administration, expressed disagreement with the judge's ruling, suggesting that local wildlife management should be determined by state authorities rather than external judicial interference. We are profoundly disappointed with the ruling, particularly as Idaho has successfully managed a wolf population exceeding federal recovery goals for decades, maintaining healthy numbers since Congress delisted them from the Endangered Species Act in 2011, emphasized Director Jim Fredericks in a written statement. As per Fish and Game officials, Idaho's latest wolf population figure stood at 1,235 as of May 2024, which they argue is well above the established recovery target of 150 wolves. Responding to the ruling, Little's office labeled Judge Malloy as an activist judge, further condemning the decision as detrimental to Western states. Although the legal ruling does not immediately alter the situation for wolves in Idaho, officials from the Idaho Department of Fish and Game cautioned that the implications of this case regarding the Endangered Species Act could potentially influence future wolf management policies in Idaho. They noted, Idaho may eventually be impacted, as the case involves the Endangered Species Act status of wolves across the Western U.S., with variables in protection depending on the state. In light of these developments, Idaho Fish and Game reiterated their commitment to managing the wolf population in harmony with ecological and social parameters, while ensuring numbers surpass federal recovery criteria. Fredericks acknowledged, wolves evoke divided opinions. Some firmly believe they should not be hunted or trapped at all. Where sustainable populations thrive, we feel that such management decisions should remain with the states rather than being dictated by federal entities or the courts. The origins of this lawsuit can be traced back to the Western Watersheds Project and several allied conservation groups, who officially filed the lawsuit in January. Their petition was a response to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's rejection of further protective measures for wolves, as states like Idaho implemented policies to reduce wolf populations through expanded hunting and trapping regulations. Greg Ledon highlighted how the anti-wolf sentiments that gained momentum in Idaho led to a disastrous perception of wolves since 2011, driving policies aimed at significantly reducing their populations. Many share concerns that state governments are revisiting historical measures that resulted in the near eradication of wolves in the past, as Judge Malloy's ruling mandates a reassessment by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service based on contemporary scientific insights and the issues raised in the lawsuit. This pivotal moment could lead to a reassessment of wolf conservation strategies in the West. Should Fish and Wildlife decide to appeal the ruling, it could initiate another round of discussions and debates surrounding the future of wolves in Idaho and beyond. What do you think about the current management of wolves in Idaho? Should the state retain control, or should federal protections be reinstated? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.